Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down.
All right. Well, welcome to another edition of the podcast Department Spotlight. We have with us here 3 members of the Science Department. Very happy to have you. Welcome.
Thanks.
Coach Fincham, this is not your first time on a podcast.
No, it is not.
But we welcome you back.
Thank you.
And 2 newbies to our podcast room, which would be Mrs. Amanda Long.
Hello.
And Mrs. Katie Clockingay.
Hi there.
Welcome. So I'm sure you've listened to every single episode of the podcast, yes. So you know kind of how we start. And we typically start by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself and specifically your background in education and how you came to be a teacher and how you came to be a science teacher. So, Ms. Long, if you could start.
Sure. So in high school, I loved science, thought it was really interesting. I was kind of between maybe I would do the medical field, maybe I would do research, or I liked the idea of education just because I could cover it all. And so I actually only applied to ISU because I knew that they had a really good education program, and then they kind of offered a little bit of everything I was interested in. So at ISU, I did some research with rats, and so I actually did research with the Millennium Pain Clinic, and my job was to be with the rats to basically manipulate their sensations of pain. And I was in a lab every day by myself poking rats, and they would poop and pee on me, and I was like, you know what, I'm not getting the full experience of how much I love science in the lab setting. So I was not doing that. And then in the education program, I just found that I loved, I had a lot of passion. I loved sharing my interest in science. And so I just continued on with ISU. I student taught up in the south suburbs, actually at 8th grade. And that's how I knew I never wanted to teach junior high. But my first ever...
I hear you.
My first ever job was here. I was a part-time teacher here in 2011. And then... I got hired full time, and so this is year 14 for me. So I love it.
Wow. I would not have guessed 14 years for you.
I know, isn't that crazy? I'm a baby.
West. All right. Ms. Clockingay.
All right. Well, I remember loving science ever since just 7th grade. I remember our teacher gave us an article to read about little bugs that live in your eyebrows and eyelashes.
Gross.
And I was like, this is so cool. Whilst all the other students were going, ew, that's disgusting. So I've just always really been drawn, to science, thought it was really interesting that every time you have a question, you get that answered, you just have more questions, and it's kind of just an endless cycle of knowledge. So after high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew that I liked art and science, but I was told by my counselor, you should pick one of those. So I picked science just because I thought, if I go into education, then I can actually talk about science every day, which that excited me. So I did my undergrad at ISU. While I was there, I also worked in a research laboratory with mice.
Oh.
The professor that I was working with was doing some research on mosquitoes. And so my job was to actually anesthetize the mice and let the mosquitoes feed on them. And then afterwards take care of them. And so, yeah, I decided that was also not what I wanted to do. So
This is not at all where I thought these
no, you're learning a little
conversations
bit more
were going,
us.
but good knowledge.
I can't wait to find out what rodent that Mr. Finch used.
Yes. So I got my undergrad from ISU. I got my minor in geology and my major in biology education. And then I went back to ISU for my master's degrees. I got one in teaching and learning and one in educational administration. So that's a bit about mine.
Coach.
Man, my story's not nearly as fun as theirs.
You need to make something up really quickly.
I need to figure something out. my I guess past with science kind of came from my family. And so I have a family that's just a family full of doctors or nurses. And so, my dad is a dentist. My oldest sister's got a doctorate in nurse practitioning. She's a professor out in Washington State. My brother's an orthopedic surgeon, and my other sister is a school nurse. And so then there's me.
But those are all kind of science related.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And so they, we were a very sciencey family, kind of passionate into that field. Science was kind of that subject that I really kind of thrived in high school, kind of had a passion for it. And I think a lot of it might have been the teachers that kind of, they made it a lot of fun. We got to work with a lot of specimens and things like that. I didn't have the experience of a rodent. I got to dissect and get my passion from dissecting a cat. So a little bit different. Yeah.
Definitely.
So did that in high school, and then obviously did that in college as well, to different focus. But, and then just went to college, got my degree in biology, and then went back, got my teacher cert at, first I went to Aurora University, and then got my teacher cert at Eureka College, and then started teaching and coaching here.
Excellent. One of the things that I'm gathering from what you're talking about, and it totally makes sense, is that all three of you are very passionate about what you're teaching, and science kind of lends itself to that. A little more so probably than accounting, even though, I'm very, I love teaching accounting, and I love when they get the concepts and understand it, but my classroom is probably a little different than your classrooms, and the experiences that my students have are different. So my next question, I felt like you were almost going to answer it. I'm glad you didn't. Was there one teacher that you remember the most that really fueled your passion for wanting to go into a science field? Ms. Long, I'll start with you.
I had two science teachers. My freshman year, we took an intro to physical science class, so it wasn't biology. But the first day of school, she ate a candle, which we used to do that in chemistry. Do you remember that? It was really like an almond in an apple, and you would light it, and the almond would light on fire, and so it looked like we were just taking observations.
So
we were just
toasted
looking at
almonds.
It. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Like a sliver of a toasted almond. Yeah. And so then she's having us look at it, and then she popped it in her mouth and ate it. And I just was like, oh my God, she's crazy. And so I just, she was really engaging. She did a lot of cool things. But then my senior year, I took AP Bio, which I now teach AP Bio, which is really cool. But her name was Doc Kosum, and she went back while she was teaching to become a dentist, actually. And so she literally, over the summer before I took AP Bio, at her dentist office, we had to physically mail her our homework, because she was working as a dentist and a teacher at the same time.
That's crazy.
And so she was just she was a single woman, she was a mom, she just worked her butt off to get what she wanted, and she knew her stuff, and I was just wow, she is powerful and awesome, and I want to be her. And yeah.
There, now you are. What school was that?
Carl Sandburg High School in Orland Park. Got it. Yeah, school of 4,000 students. It was a big one.
Normal West and normal community together.
Right.
So, good.
Yeah. There was two teachers that stand out for me in high school. My freshman biology teacher, his name was Mr. Allen, and he was a new teacher. So he was kind of more, shall we say, fun and engaging.
Right. Yeah.
With his students.
So he had more energy than, let's say, me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or me at this stage, yes. Yeah, and then my junior year, my teacher, Mr. Alexander, he was an interesting person, but a lot of things that he did in class I thought were just, he thought outside the box, and he allowed us to do different things other than just what was in the textbook. I remember when he was teaching us the scientific method, he let us do our own research. Mm-hmm. And I remember mine was on roadkill. And during a couple different months, what percentage of roadkill was, different animals and why. And so it got into kind of their breeding cycles and
interesting
things like that. So
I mean, that's when you learn, when you're interested and you get to choose your own topic and stuff like that. So in what high school did you go to?
I went to Rantoul High School.
Rantoul. Mm-hmm. Got it. not too far from here. Coach.
One teacher kind of stands out for me, and I went to Ridgeview High School, pretty local. His name was Mr. Holtzman, and I had him as my freshman bio teacher as well as the AP, because essentially at Ridgeview, you just have one science teacher essentially for everything. So, what made him unique? I mean, he obviously was passionate into the subject, but he just had kind of like a museum of weird things like that he would have, and like you'd have a bunch of specimens of like kind of weird, kind of mutated different things just to kind of pique your interest into stuff. And
right.
So, every once in a while he'd bring those types of things out, and then he just kind of would tell a lot of stories into different things to eventually kind of wind back into what we're trying to learn about. And so he just was engaging, made it fun, and just kind of had some unique things that made the class enjoyable.
So in the science department, in terms of requirements for graduation, how many credits do students need to have of science to graduate?
Currently, they just need to take essentially 2 years of science to be able to graduate.
So 4 credit, or well, actually 2 credits because it's 4 half credits. So what do you suggest to your juniors and seniors then who have already taken biology and chemistry, let's say their freshman and sophomore year? What are some of the courses that you guys have to offer that entice those people who are interested in science, or just they don't have to necessarily be wanting to go into the science field, but science is fun for them to take?
Well, and I'll let them speak on this too, but I think it's different based on the type of student. I think you have some students that, are focused on, achieving at the highest level and getting up to the APs and taking those classes because they want to get into the medical field. And, physics is kind of the gateway into some of those AP bio, AP chem, AP physics classes. And so, there's different pathways that I think they need to take. And then you have some students that would benefit from the dual credit line. And we have some pretty good dual credit classes as well. It depends on the type of student, and I think there's kind of options for whatever a student is looking for. But definitely want to push the idea that you need more science. You should be taking 4 years of science, and because there's different things that you can take away from our science department.
Agreed. I've got a student over here to the left that's attached to me, and I think he's probably trying to decide what he wants to do next year and what type of science to take as well. So that's important. And the options that you guys have in your department, and obviously having great teachers always helps as well. So today's podcast sponsor is Select Screen Prints. Select Screen Prints has been in partnership with Normal West for over 25 years, providing quality Wildcat apparel at an affordable price. Choose Select Screen Prints for all of your custom t-shirt, sweatshirt, and apparel needs. They now offer digital printing, which allows for fast turnaround and excellent quality at prices that are less expensive than most online apparel companies. Select Screen Prints is the choice in Bloomington Normal area and beyond. Check them out for your next apparel order. All right, so we'll go away from science for a few minutes if we're allowed to do that. Are we allowed?
Sure. No.
Okay, that's what I was looking at you, Katie. I'm like, she's going to... So you don't have to answer then. You can refrain from this one. So we ask this to all our Department Spotlight interviewees. If not this, then what? So if you weren't a high school science teacher, what would you probably be?
I'd be a park ranger. I'd just be alone in the mountains,
Any specific mountains, or just you wander from mountain range to mountain range?
Yes, I just wander. No, I don't know. Probably Yellowstone or Glacier, somewhere with a lot of ecological importance, somewhere where I could do more field work. Since I didn't like the laboratory setting, I think that would probably be my other option. Yellowstone.
That's great. So is that something that maybe you would be able to do after you retire as a teacher?
Well, when I'm 67 and retired.
Oh, that's right. You're tier 2.
I'm tier 2.
Sorry about that. For those of you who are listening and don't know what tier 2 is, it is the devil. You look it up. Trust me, because it's ridiculous. It's one of the more ridiculous. And from a accounting teacher, I understand the monetary aspect of it, just ridiculous. Anyway, I don't need to tell you that, do I?
So, if I'm healthy in my 70s, then maybe that's my option.
Got it.
So we'll see.
Got it. Mrs. Tier 1 Clockingay.
Yes, thank goodness. I honestly would have probably gone into art in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if that would have been like medical illustrating or like taking objects in nature and making art out of them or something like that. But I enjoy drawing and painting and, all types of art. Either that or I would own a cat cafe, which is part of my retirement plan. So hopefully you can help me with
You're
that.
going to have to explain.
What?
Oh, you don't know what a cat
It's
cafe
a
is?
cafe for wildcats?
Well, yeah,
Or-
of course.
Okay.
Yeah, for wildcats to
A
come
cat
to.
cafe. So cats can go there and make people miserable because I'm allergic to them.
Oh, well, I guess you couldn't come.
Yes, I probably would not be.
But there is a cat cafe in town. But my sister and I have kind of talked about doing that when we both retire. So it'd be a place where you could go and hang out with cats and have coffee and food, and you can adopt cats out of there. So they're not cats from like the Humane Society. They're from like other, local organizations that help. So,
Very cool. Never heard of it. So
well, now you have.
now I have.
I'm with you. I've never heard of that before either.
Y'all are crazy.
Coach, I'm guessing if you weren't here, you would probably be coach at Dallas Cowboys, maybe? They need some help.
God, I don't know. I can't stand the Cowboys, so no, I don't know if I would.
If they paid you
yes,
$3.4 million a year to
that's where
coach,
it's
would
different.
I would
I would
coach
coach
them.
anyway. Yeah, I'll be your biggest fan. I think definitely, with my coaching background, and I think I would have pursued coaching, full time. And like you have an option kind of when you get out of college, like you can either go down the path of being a GA and getting into the coaching world, or you can essentially sacrifice your whole personal life just to kind of do football, because that's kind of what the world is there, or go the other path, which I went down. So I think I would have gone, if I didn't have this job, I probably would be doing that.
Well, in really speaking to all of you guys, we need people like you teaching our young kids, because I think if anything we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years is our country needs some guidance. And that starts with education in the educational system. Obviously, it should start in the family system as well. But so thanks for not choosing that and staying and shaping our young minds, and same with you guys as well. So,
Thank you.
So last question. What is it about science and kids taking science that's important? So basically, if you had to sit down with the high school student who is deciding, do I want to take another year or 2 of science, what would your message be to them?
For me, science is another way to understand the world. And like you're just saying, we need guidance, right? And this, at least for me, like science helps me understand just what's going on inside my body, how we're all connected to everything around us. And I think that's an important thing to just remember. Especially with things like climate catastrophe that could happen in, the coming decades. I think just if we have a better understanding of the world, then we're more likely to do something about it. So that would maybe be my message.
Yeah, I would just echo what you said there. And science is just such a different way of thinking and problem solving that I think just training your brain to think that way can help, like, in areas outside of science as well.
I agree. I remember earlier on in my teaching career, I don't get this as much anymore, but a lot of students complaining like about their math class. Why do I have to learn this? Well, you need to learn how to learn. And you need to learn, and maybe you don't use, like I don't use calculus on a daily basis, and I took it. I don't use finite math. I use algebra all the time because accounting is very algebra related, but I learned how to learn complex topics in learning all different sorts of materials. Science is a lot more practical in its base, so it's good to learn those practical things
And I would say the
be
more
well-rounded.
science you learn, the more you see that they're all connected. So if you just take biology and chemistry, you have biology and chemistry. But then as you go on, you can maybe make some connections between biology and chemistry or physics and chemistry.
Right.
And so it helps you to understand science more, more different types of science that you take.
Got it. Before we go to you, my Cooper has something to say.
Oh, Cooper.
He's inspired. He doesn't do this very often. So.
My 8th grade math teacher said, like, it was geometry, and she said, the math isn't about like the actual things that we learn. It's about growing that part of your brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed, which is science related, by the way. Growing the different
Growing
parts
brains.
of the. So it all comes back to science
Yeah.
and accounting. Okay, all right, maybe not the second part. All right, Coach Fincham.
For me, I think the message I tend to give students is just the ability to think critically, to be able to make decisions and educate yourself and how to do those types of things. I feel like science is, one of those subjects where, you do learn how to, research, make observations, make decisions based off those observations, or to trial and error, you know what I mean, and do different things. And so just by having those critical, like scientific method type things is important to individuals. And the more that you have of those things, just like anything else, like the more opportunities you have, the more sound you'll be in your decisions down the road. And so I think it's important to, have as much experience with that as possible, especially in the safety net of high school. It's important.
Absolutely agree. All well spoken, which is no surprise because you guys are smart people, but I appreciate your insights, and I hope those people who are listening appreciate them as well, and I'm sure they will. So thank you for spending a few moments with us and taking some time off of your lunch. I know lunch is one of my most favorite parts of the day. So I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.